Matthew chapter 5. We're looking at verse 33 down through verse 37, Matthew chapter 5. Little mixed feelings this morning. This is the last study we will do on this passage. We're down to the last sentence phrase of verse 37. And I'm so grateful to you as a congregation for creating an atmosphere in which I can get into the Word of God, and you have no idea what this is doing to me inside. So my spiritual life is just happening all over me because you're giving me this opportunity. And then you pay me besides. Wow, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. I mean, whoa, is God good or not? So, anyhow, this is the last, and I've had about all this I can take anyhow, so we're moving from this. We will next Sunday be moving into Acts chapter 4. And we did a little bit on this in the Sunday school hour on this, but we're moving to Acts chapter 4 just to keep you up to date. And we'll be moving to verse 23, the paragraph of verse 23 through 31. And it's really light and superficial, and so we'll take a kind of little break with all this heavy stuff. So just come relax next Sunday. It'll all be good. So that's kind of where we're headed in the whole procedure here. The Sermon on the Mount, as I've told you before, I started studying the book of Matthew like in the 80s. And just begin to walk through the book, paragraph by paragraph, verse by verse in the saturation process. And of course, all of that spilled out in the preaching. And so I've spent all of this time just walking through Matthew. But I eliminated the Sermon on the Mount because I didn't want to get involved in it. I knew that it was a hole. If you fell into it, you'd never get out. So, but again, I'm about to die, so why not? So I decided to get into it before I kicked the bucket. And it has been everything and worse than what I thought. The Sermon on the Mount is not for the entertainment church. If you're interested in entertainment, walking away saying, man, he tells good jokes, the Sermon on the Mount is not for you. There's nothing entertaining about it. While there is some humor, I suppose, that I could dig up some humor in the midst of it, somehow it ends up not to be funny. Because the pressure of the truth is so great that it just literally captures me. And if you're into feel good, I need a little encouragement, come and let me feel good, the Sermon on the Mount's not for you. Because you feel worse after you get done with it. It's so revealing and so penetrating. If you're a legalistic Pharisee, you sure don't want to get into the Sermon on the Mount because there are no rules here. In fact, if you attempt to make Sermon on the Mount like turn the other cheek a rule, you've immediately destroyed the very essence of what he's talking about. So there are no rules in the Sermon on the Mount at all, because he's moving you totally away from that whole context and thought process. So if you're out for a new set of rules, he goes way, way beyond that into inner attitude. If you're really interested in some new ceremonies and rituals to perform, you're really going to be disappointed in the Sermon on the Mount. Because again, there are no sacrifices to be offered in the sermon, no candles to light. You find none of that kind of stuff. Even his discourse in chapter 6 on charitable deeds and the prayer and the fasting are so far removed from ritual and from ceremonies that when you get done with the prayer thing, it's like, whoa, I should just do this all the time, which ends up meaning that the set aside, oh, yeah, I prayed an hour today, becomes meaningless in light of what he's saying to us. So the whole ritual and ceremonial kind of emphasis is gone. If you're wanting to be spiritually superior, you're going to be really disappointed in the Sermon on the Mount, because he comes down so hard on the judging thing. In fact, when he gets done with chapter 5 and moves you into the rest of it, you end up with this overwhelming sense that I have no right to judge anybody because I'm on the level of the worst guy, the most helpless person you could possibly dig up. So where would the judgment come from, and how could you possibly be spiritually superior? Well, if the Sermon on the Mount is not for any of those people, who on earth is the Sermon on the Mount for? Oh, it's for all the helpless people, the poor in spirit. He starts out that way, right? So it's blessed are the poor, the stripped down, the helpless, the ones who have no resource. Blessed are you, because if I crack you right down the middle, split you right down the middle, and go to the very inner core of your system, what am I going to find? Absolute, total helplessness. Nothing is there. Because you have no resource. You are totally empty. You have no ability. There is no strength. You're helpless. So the Sermon on the Mount is for the helpless people. Well, what am I supposed to do with this helplessness that's at the core of my system? Well, he says you ought to mourn over it. You ought to be gripped by it. As grief grips the individual who just has lost a loved one, I want your helplessness to grip you, and I want you to live in that helplessness. I never, ever want you to step out of it. Come on, live in that. Just embrace that. The minute you get cocky and step out of that, man, you're dead meat. The minute you move into, well, I can handle this, you have absolutely crippled yourself. You have absolutely destroyed and brought destruction to everything around you. The only possibility you got is right here in this helplessness. Well, what does that embracing my helplessness do for me? It turns him loose to embrace you. And I know we've gone over and over and over this, but it's not embracing you in terms of everything will be okay, son. It's not that. It's not he touched me. Thank you, Bill Gaither. It's not that. It's not that. It's not what as Jesus passed by, whoa. It's not, oh yeah, I felt his presence this morning. It's not that. It's embrace. It's merge. It's fusion. It's you and him coming together in such an intimacy and such a oneness that there is no difference between you and him, that he is expressing himself in and through you, that you have become the visible image of the invisible God. It's everything that was going on in Jesus now is going on in you in the merger, and it's a new creature concept. So he isn't that, you aren't this on your own, and he isn't this on his own, but when the two of you come together, this new creature is created who is called the kingdom of God. And that's his whole premise, where he's going with this whole thing. Now, you understand, if this is really true, people, that all the old standard of the old covenant that all of those of old talked about just isn't going to hack it. We're not settling for that anymore, Jesus says. The old standard that was set up by the 613 oral traditions and the rules and the laws that I did my best, and I'm trying, and all of that is gone, people, and we're into a whole new dynamic of life experience that's, woo, hang on, how fast can this thing go? Kind of deal. So here I could accept defeat. Why? Man, I'm only human. Good night. I mean, I'm doing the best I can. My dad dropped me twice on my head when I was a kid. What do you expect? I mean, I am who I am. Come on, give me a little leeway here. See, that was okay in the old. Not now. Why? You're helpless, and he's come. And there's a whole new resource of all that God is literally spilling in and through you. Do you know what the possibilities of that for you are? It's mind-boggling. So why should I settle for defeat? That would be a slap in the face of this whole new deal that he's brought about. So if I looked at my life and said, well, come on, I'm doing the best I can, and everybody sins, whoa, why would you accept that? When all the resource of the cross that brought about redemption, and he came to destroy the one who brought about this, destroy all the works of the evil one, how could you see? This is bringing us, people, to a brand new level, that new, whole new, wow. Why would you accept, well, come on, everybody gets upset, everybody gets angry, oh, you can't help it, there's mean people around. I know, you're right, there's no question about that. And that was okay here, but not now. Come on, why? Because we got a whole resource. The emptiness is now filled with the essence of his presence. We have his mind. The possibilities are. Now, obviously, this is not a finger in your face. This is not a bawling out that he's giving us. This is, hey, people, do you know what we got going here? Do you know what you could be? Do you know what the realms of possibilities are for you? And he explodes this thing. Now he says, because you've been here and I'm in the new covenant taking you here, I want to give you some examples so this is really clear. And he's been moving us through these examples. And there are 6 of them, and we're working on number 4, which is the morals issue. He gives us the murder thing, he gives us the morality thing, he gives us the marriage deal, and now he's given us the morals. Verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your yes be yes, and your no, no, for whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Verse 37 again. But let your yes be yes, and your no be no, for whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Now the old timer said, hey, if God is involved, you got to keep your word. Oh, brother. So if you swear by God, the minute you involve God, wow, look out. You better not promise when you got God involved and not keep it. Because he knows. And you're messing with you don't want to mess with him. So the obvious answer to that is don't involve him. So they developed, as we've discussed, swear by heaven gives me some wiggle room. Didn't swear by God. Intended to keep my word, but hey, circumstances change, and I got to have a back door on this thing. So it's all okay. Why? Didn't swear by God, swore by heaven. So God wasn't involved. So it's all okay. In fact, if you want to make it a little more wiggle room, swear by the earth. And I think these are in a progression. The heaven didn't swear by heaven, swore by the earth. It's, hey, not like the heavens. It's, hey, gives me more. Hey, I didn't even swear by that. I swore by Jerusalem. Didn't look at it when I did it too. So it's still, see, I got more wiggle. Hey, I can swear by my head and it's totally empty. So, hey, there's no problem there. I can pretty well do what I want to do then. And he walks through those. And that was the procedure. If you involve God, you got to keep your word. Jesus says, you're not getting this. See, you're helpless. If you will embrace your helplessness, what will happen? He will come in his overwhelming presence and merge with you, and you will become this new creature. So, God is always involved. What word is going to come out of your mouth that he's not involved in? So what's this swear by heaven stuff, swear by earth stuff, swear by Jerusalem stuff, swear by your head stuff? Swear by your big toe if you want to. I don't care. But don't you get it? He's always involved. Therefore, I'm telling you, eliminate the swearing stuff altogether. And just let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now, we discovered last Sunday, which sets up what we want to talk about today. We discovered last Sunday that in verse 37, there are two words in my translation that are left out. And in searching through a lot of translations, I found most translations leave them out. And the two words that are left out are the little Greek word ho, which is the article the or the that we use. And there is the word, which is logos. So the word. And it's literally placed right at the front of the sentence. So it would literally be translated like this. Let your word be yes, yes, and no, no. Now, that just blew up in my face, and we spent a whole study on it last week. But it just blew up in my face because God, in the Gospel of John, he gives this logos thing to Jesus. He identifies it with Jesus. In other words, he gives Jesus a nickname. And the nickname of Jesus is Word. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So it's his nickname. And you know what a nickname is all about. Hey, shorty, come here. What do you expect to walk through the door? A short guy, right? So the nickname is characteristic of the individual. So he's giving Jesus this nickname, a word. And what is the word? We described it as two parts. There's two elements, not two separate elements, but two elements that make up one thing. In other words, two sides to one deal. So the two concepts or the two elements are, on the one hand, there's the idea. Oh, this is so awesome. See, in the head, in the brain process, there is an idea. Then I give expression to that idea, and I make it so it's seeable. So in the Logos, there is idea that becomes expressed. In the mind of God, there is an idea. He dreamed about you. Everything he wanted you to have, everything he wanted you to be, everything that is about you. And you can say, well, in the mind of God, there's the idea of humanity. Are you a member? So there's an idea about you. So God has this idea in his head about what he wants you to be and what he destined you and created you to be. And then he gave an expression of it, and Jesus is the expression, the word spoken in the flesh. So when you're looking at Jesus, you are looking at exactly what you are to be. Pardon me while I have a fit. Yes! Isn't that phenomenal? That is mind-boggling, people. The idea of mankind now expressed in the living person of Christ. And this all gets confusing because you say, well, now wait a minute. He's the visible image of God. So he's what God is all about. Yeah. Now you're saying he's what mankind is all about. Yeah. So wouldn't it be interesting if what mankind is all about is what God is all about? And that the purpose of your life is to be a manifestation of him. Because you came from his brain. And he spoke you into existence. And your created destiny is to be an expression of his mind, the Logos. Now, you say, what does that have to do with this passage? Oh, see, it's let your Logos be yes, yes, and no, no. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's a new rule. I got to be yes, yes, or I got to be no, no. I can't be yes and no. It's tough. This is not a new rule. Well, I can't lie. He's not saying that. Well, I got to always tell. He's not saying that. Well, you got to be on. He's not saying that. That's undercurrent, but that's not what he's saying. What he's saying in the verse is, hey, let the idea in your head be the expression of your life. And if the idea in the head, if the idea in the heart, if what you are inside is yes, then let it be yes out here. If it's no in here, then let it be no out here. Well, there's a lot of room in that then. Okay, if I'm mean in here, I'm mean out here, therefore I meet his qualifications. Because whatever's in here is out here. What are you in here? If I take a knife and slit you down the middle, what am I going to see? Nothing. Why? Because you're helpless. That's his whole premise. So if you are helpless within, how are you going to be out here? Helpless. Don't act like you. Don't strut your. What are you? You got your. No, you don't. You're helpless. Why is that hard? Well, come on. And admit all the time that you are helpless. And allow his resource to fill you so that what you are in here, you. And do you realize that nearly every conflict in my relationships and every defeat in my life is all traceable back to I won't admit I'm helpless? And I'll tell you, they made me mad. You didn't embrace your helplessness. So he's not giving us a new rule here. He's saying, what I want you to do is embrace your helplessness, which you are inside, and let the yes of your helplessness be yes out here, and don't act like you. That's his proposition. Then he gives this last statement. Wow, what a statement. He says, for whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Now, logically, you immediately begin to understand that for whatever is more than these, what's the these? What does these refer to? Obviously, it's yes, yes, no, no. So the idea and the expression, which is the logos. So what he's saying is not that you need to be honest, not a new rule, not always tell the truth, but be the logos of God. We're going to give you a nickname, Shorty. Logos. You're the word. You're the idea in the mind of God now displayed. So the whole world can see exactly what God thinks about humanity and what his dream is for humanity. That's his proposition. Now, I want to break that down for you with 3 ideas, all a part of one concept. Number 1, boundary language. See, it's very, very obvious what he's doing. Jesus is so, he's just, what's the word? See, whatever you want to talk about, he's willing to talk about. Well, I'm a farmer. Okay, let's talk agriculture. A guy took this seed, went out, and the parables are full of that. Well, I'm a fisherman. Okay, let's talk about fishing. Cast your net and gives the whole fishing thing. Be a fisher of men. See, I'll talk, whatever you want to talk, I'll talk your language. I'll put it in your framework. Well, you're the owner of a vineyard, rich guy. Okay, this guy came and embezzled from the rich guy, and he tells this whole story. I'll talk your language. Oh, you're the owner of a vineyard. Okay. Hey, this guy had this vineyard, and he had this, and then he finally sent his son, and they killed him. And these wicked vine dressers, see, I'll talk your language. What do you want to talk? I'll talk your language. We can put this into any language you want. Now he comes to this group and says, hey, those of old have a language. Now he says, let's talk your language. What language do you have? Boundary language. You talk boundary language. Okay, I'm willing to talk boundary language. Those of old said, you shall not murder. What is that? Boundary. I've set a boundary up for my life. I got all this anger. I got all this upset. I got all this, I got all this emotion. I have bad days. I have anxiety. I get to the point where I just feel like, I hate. What am I supposed to do with all of that? Put a lid on it. Set a boundary around it. What's the boundary? Don't kill people. That's the boundary. Hey, I hate their guts, but I'm not going to kill them. I would if I could, but I don't. I can't. It's my boundary. It's my lid. I don't go beyond that. That's the boundary. So they set up boundary language. He says, I'm willing to talk that. If your boundary is don't murder, everything else is fair game, demeaning, belittling, making fun of, looking down your nose at, judging, being angry at, hating, all of that is fine as long as you don't cross this boundary. I want to give you, in the new covenant kingdom, a new boundary. Are you ready for it? Don't be angry. Well, it's impossible. I know. Nobody can. You're right. Have you tried? Hey, you can't. Things happen. People just naturally get up. I know. There's mean people out there. You're right. I'm doing the best I can. You're exactly, I understand. I'm only human. You're right. Nobody's perfect. You're right. Exactly right. Which proves the point. You're helpless. You're preaching the gospel when you do that. You're absolutely helpless. You can't pull this off. You've never been able to pull this off. With all the anger management classes, you can't pull this off. You can't always have the right attitude. You have never been able to do that. Regardless of how hard you try, you have never been able to love everybody. I've developed this thing, this discipline in my life till I can tolerate everybody, but I can't love everybody. I can tolerate you if you come every other Sunday. But I can't love everybody. See, that's an unrealistic boundary. I know. So you're admitting your helplessness, right? That you can't do this. So instead of using that as an excuse, how many times have we said this to you? Instead of using that as an excuse, well, I'm the only human. Instead of using that as an excuse, embrace that. I'm helpless, and let him come. And a new boundary is established. And what's the boundary? The boundary is, he's my resource. So he is now the boundary. And he's going to give expression in the Logos. It's his nickname. He's going to give his expression. I'm going to become the Logos. So what's in here, which is him sourcing me, is going to express itself. How's he going to express itself? Father, forgive them. Well, I can't do that. I know, you're helpless. So something's got to happen beyond you. So the boundary now is no hate, no bitterness, no anger, perfect love. Amen, Brother Manley. Thank you. Woo! Isn't that hilarious? Oh, well, since you like that one so well, let me talk to you about morality. The old timer said, I've got a boundary. I've got a sex drive. It's over here in the corner. Hey, everybody's got one. Okay, it's over here in the corner. Hey, you do the best you can. It's just one appetite. Hey, it's no big deal. You just, hey, you got to control a thing. Family, kids. Jesus said, you're wrong. If I take a knife and slit you down the middle and go to the core of your being, what do I find? I find sexuality. It's at your heart. It's at your heart level. And it touches and influences and shapes everything in your whole life. This is such an amazing concept. I've never gotten over this. I didn't realize this, people. My sexuality just affects everything. I have desperately searched to find one thing in my life that my sexuality doesn't affect. And it's not there. I can't find anything. The way I walk, the way I talk, again, the whiskers on my chin, the way I have my hair, what I dress, the way I drive my car, what I like. My wife wants kissy shows on TV. I hit him again. What is the deal with that? See, where does that come from? Right out of this sexuality. I can't help it, I'm masculine. Again, even my name, I can't help it. It's just who I am. You know what? What do I want to say? I'm a masculine kind. My whole approach to life is all masculine. See, don't whimper, kick it, hit it again. Get a hammer, man, we'll fix it. See, what is this? Lean into it, come on. You cut yourself, put some duct tape on it. Good night, let's move on. He built me that way. So this is not So you come along and say, oh, just don't sleep with your brother's wife. What are you talking about? I want to give you a whole new boundary. Because if your sexuality is full of helplessness that thinks it's not, whoa. Then what becomes my expression of my walk? See, what's going to become the way I talk? Well, I'll talk like a preacher and talk loud. See, how am I going to drive? Get out of my way. See, hey, don't you cross me. So see, it isn't even about murder and anger. See, where does all that come from? It comes from the sexuality at the core that gives expression to its own self-centeredness, its helplessness that doesn't know it's helpless. So what would happen if you would embrace that helplessness at the core of your life, your sexuality, and allow his presence to become the expression, new boundary? Logos. Hey, shorty, come over here. Hey, you've got a new nickname. Why? Because you have become inside an idea, and it's his presence in the depth of your inner being, and your sexuality now begins to be an expression of that idea, which is him. So you walk like Jesus. Wow, you drive like Jesus. Keep still, dear. You drive like Jesus. Wow. Isn't this phenomenal? And a whole new boundary is established in the Logos idea. You catching on? Well, what about marriage, man? What about marriage? Well, what a breath she has. Whew. I've talked to her too. She still breathes all over me. Well, get rid of her. Get rid of her, brother. Get rid of her. Or he says, why don't you consider what you cause? Well, don't, see? Consider what you're causing in her. Wow, that's a whole new boundary. That I've got to be the spiritual force in my home that will create spirituality in my wife. What? I've got to push her in the direction of love and kindness and what about the woman? Doesn't she have some responsibility? I have no idea about women. So I'm not even going to go there. Just don't nag, ladies. So anyhow, what you got? You're the Logos. It's a new boundary. See, it's the new boundary that what you are in here, in the fullness of Jesus, your helplessness filled with it, it's going to give expression to this whole new in your home. Now, morals. New boundary. Don't lie when God is involved. It's not about lying. It's about there is this integrity of his character. And he has filled you. You mean you never make a mistake? See, you're missing the point. See, the point is never about missing a mistake, never making a mistake. The point is you have embraced your helplessness. He has filled you, and you live in integrity. Because you're the expression of his person. The Logos. Hey, Shorty, come over here. Boundary language. Let me mention birthing language. Look at the verse. For whatever is more than these is from. The word from is a movement term, obviously. And in our passage, it's the Greek word ek, E-K. And it was in one location, now moved to another. From. But there's another Greek word, and we've talked about this, for from. It's a po. So you got a po, A-P-O, and ek, E-K, which are two Greek words, both translated from, but they're not the same. And they're never used interchangeably. And the difference between a po and ek is where the movement originates from. So a po is always the movement started nearby, close to. Ek is it always was from within. My favorite illustration, a po. Yeah, a po is always used for that which originally starts its movement from nearby. For instance, the boy picked up the stone, he threw it at me, the rock came from a po, the boy. Meaning what? It wasn't a kidney stone. It was down by his foot. He bent over, picked it up, and threw it at me. It was nearby, close to. It wasn't from within. If it had been a kidney stone from within, it would have been ek. But it's a po. Isn't it interesting? In the passage, he says it's from. For whatever is more than these is from. Ek. From where? Within. This is birthed within you. So see, what I'm concerned about is what you're birthing from within. I'm not interested in what you did out here. I'm interested in where it came from, what out here came from. It's the Logos, people. You got the idea in here, okay, and what's coming out here comes from that idea. It's birthed by the idea. So everything I'm trying to tell you, he says, from don't murder to from the murder thing to the morality, sexuality thing to the marriage thing to the moral thing to the honesty thing is all about what? Come on, what are you in here? Well, I'm trying to do better. Do you see how stupid that is? I'm trying to do better. As if out here could be shifted, which would change this. No, it's not going to change this in here. See, I don't care if you drink. I don't care if you smoke. I don't care if you cuss. I don't care if you sleep with women. I don't care if you're a homosexual. I don't care about same-sex marriage. I don't care about any of that. Why? Because none of that is the problem. What's the problem? In here. So what are you going to do with the homosexual? I don't know. What are you going to do with the same sex? I don't know. I don't know. What are you going to do about crime? I don't know. What are you going to do about adultery? I don't know. I don't know what to do. This has to change. Because we're Logos. Hey, Shorty, come here. We're Logos. What's in here comes out here. It's birthed. And I'm trying to give you a new birthing. Jesus. Sermon on the Mount. Mercy, mercy, Jesus. I'm glad it's in a book and I can put the book away. Because, Lord, the examination of my inner being through the eyes of what I do outwardly and the hypocrisy of my action compared to what I am inside, and my smile that says I love you when I'm full of hate inside, and the old counting to 10 and taking a cold shower stuff and oh God. Could I embrace my helplessness and in my helplessness embrace you? In the name of Jesus, would you speak anew and afresh to the inner depth of our beings? Because, Jesus, anything that's not sourced by you, anything that's not birthed out of you is evil. So God, I can look and say, well, I don't do that, and I don't commit murder, and I don't, and all the time I'm not sourced by you, so even my good is filth. So here's all my preaching, and here's all my religious activities, and here's all my little prayer ceremonies, and here's all my little gifts, and here's all my little demonstrations, and here's all my signs and wonders, and here's my visions, and here's my, and here's my, and here's my, and here's my. And what's the problem with all this? God, it's all mine. And I'm living my life the best I know how. And again, the whole picture, I'm doing my best. I'm trying as hard as I can. All of that kind of stuff only revolves around more of my self-centeredness rather than the embracing of my helplessness. Oh God. Anything that's not sourced by you, anything that's not within that boundary, your presence, anything that's not birthed by who you are, is from the evil one. And I've been evil and didn't know it. Hey, heads are bowed, moments of seeking. Moments of seeking. Embrace your helplessness, please.